Welcome back to another episode of the GOAT Marketing Show. Today, we're continuing our series on AI. Most of what we've talked about in this series has been geared towards
Ben, hold on a sec. The LinkedIn just stopped.
And that's a wrap.
This is our first time trying this.
Did it actually end? Ben, hold on a sec. Nice. Okay, go live.
Do you not normally go live?
No, we do.
And that's a wrap.
This is our first time trying this. I think
we're good now.
we're good now. Okay, we're going to go reset.
Now we're going.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the GOAT Marketing Show. Today, we are continuing our live series on AI. A lot of this series has been geared towards the content creation side of AI, and this episode will probably have some elements of that. But today we're joined by a special guest, Andrew Donovan, who is the marketing automations expert at AdFarm, who is a sister agency of Giant Goat. I'm also joined by some regular guests, John and Nithya. But to kick things off, Andrew, I just wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and what exactly you do with AdFarm before we get into the discussion on AI.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so if you go to my LinkedIn page, I label myself your friendly email marketing guy, and that's kind of been my shtick since I started in email marketing like 5 or 6 years ago. But for AdFarm or the greater collection of companies that we work under, I do everything from like sending emails primarily, but data collection. So like you have an email list, right? And there's people on that list, and what do we know about them? And how do we segment them based off of geography, based off of profession, all these different variables? Write emails, of course, or help craft them anyway from like a copywriting and design perspective. And all of that cumulatively together, to some extent recently has used AI. And I think that's where this conversation is going to steer toward today. So yeah, I'm like a full suite email marketing guy.
That's awesome. And we've talked briefly about AI even today in some of our conversations in office. And one of the things that came up is that AI isn't necessarily new. We've been using AI, whether you know it or not, for years now. But in the last kind of 18 months, there's been this huge boom in it, and it's become kind of integrated into a lot of the things we do, especially in marketing. I'm curious, kind of, how has AI most impacted your day-to-day? Where do you find yourself using it in your day-to-day roles as a marketing automations person? Is it in the content creation side? Is it in process development? Is it in predictive analytics and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So when all this ChatGPT stuff came out, like at the beginning of this year, the first quarter of this year, and everyone was going crazy about it and talking about it nonstop, and I guess we still are. My wife said to me, "Is that really new?" And I said, "Well, in some respects, like it's popularized now. It's like democratized. Everyone can use it." And she's like, "Well, I'm pretty sure that everyone chatted with that MSN bot back in the day, and it's basically doing the same thing." And I said, "Actually, you got me there. It was pretty responsive, right?" And it's amazing to think of how long we've actually had access to this technology. But were we interacting with it in the same way, and was it as predictive and helpful back then? No, obviously not. But how do we use it like in a modern context for emails? I've actually just saw something today on LinkedIn, I think, that was it was Klaviyo. So Klaviyo is you can send emails from Klaviyo. It's like a MailChimp or a Salesforce or anything like that, but more for e-com. They have AI generated segmentation. So you tell them a little bit about your segment, and then it will take all of your contacts in your list and segment it out based off of whatever it is that you're looking for in a segmentation for your audience. I've not done that. There's that's a manual process on our part still. How do I use it? And more on the two ways. So first of all, ideation or idea generation. If I'm really stuck on something, or I'm not exactly sure the best structure for this email or for this paragraph even, slap that into ChatGPT and let it give you a few different variations. And then from there, you can kind of whittle that down and make sense of it. And then there's, of course, the copywriting aspect of it, which is in a previous life where I was writing emails a lot more. I was using a program called Jasper, and which is like the predecessor, I suppose, to ChatGPT. And we used it a lot, like not just for writing emails, but copywriting for websites and copywriting for blog posts and everything under the sun. So yeah, I would say the two main components of how I use it, copywriting, copywriting broadly speaking, and then idea generation.
I'm glad you mentioned Jasper. Jasper also has a really cool boot camp online where it'll walk you through kind of the keys to prompt engineering and command stacking and workflow automation, recipes, and that sort of stuff. So if anyone watching this is interested in those, we can link to it in the bio when we post this on YouTube. But if you just look up Jasper command stacking bootcamp, you'll be able to find that online. In your role, is there a part of your role that you wish there was an AI tool for right now, or one that you foresee kind of really impacting the role of a marketing automations expert in the future? Obviously, the copywriting creative side and ideation, like we use those tools in kind of similar ways in content marketing. But specifically in automations, I feel like the word automation and AI kind of go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And I'm curious if you foresee any major impacts in kind of the workflows of being in marketing automations with respect to AI.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't really given that specific question a lot of thought, but I think that it's fairly obvious when we're seeing, the Klaviyo's of the world roll out these segmentation automations. That's massive. To basically, like, when you're working with a client, some of these clients can have a list of 50,000, 100,000 plus contacts, and to be able to take a large set of data and segment that out without having to know the nitty gritty of how to use Excel, but just being able to speak to a program that can then do that for you. Once we get there, or once one of these email service providers like a MailChimp or Klaviyo, once they figure out how to do that effectively, I think that, again, I'm going to use that word democratization, which is, I think, what a lot of this is. It's like it goes from being a very specific skill set and specific type of person that can do this. And then it allows a much greater segment of the population to be able to very quickly segment or break down data. John, you and I were speaking today about the fact that you're not an email writer, right? But you were tasked with writing an email, and whilst ChatGPT presented some complications, right? Because the language that it spits out can be rather obvious. It still was able to bridge that gap that allowed you to at least be have a modicum of expertise and an ability to churn out this email content. And I think we're going to see the exact same thing when it comes to segmentation, for sure. That's already happening. Even design, I think, and one of the things that I want to know most as an email marketer is which one of these designs are more appropriate to get the highest conversion rate? Is there a way that I can incorporate the visual aspect of what it is that I'm looking at, work with a designer, say, hey, why don't you and I come together and make 3 different templates? And then we can rely on ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, but an iteration of that, to help us decide, to make an educated guess as to what this, like what the highest converting template might look like. And I'm hoping that we can incorporate design aspects of this as well, because so much of design too is just inherently subjective. People have different quirks and things that they like in emails or in landing pages, but that might not necessarily translate to being what is the most effective way of communicating information to a person in their inbox or on their mobile device.
I'll,
John,
I'll
please.
jump in here. Our conversation earlier about this was really interesting when we were talking about like you were watching one of our old videos and it was us trying to formulate like a good strong like email campaign to send out to someone, and you were saying like in the time that it took us to get ChatGPT to do it, you could have just written it yourself and not had to use any of these tools. And I thought that was interesting because like the main thing that we try to do with AI is become efficient and get faster and get the same output in quicker time. So I thought that was really interesting. But I like what you're saying about it kind of got me thinking when you're talking about like removing the people needing the Excel skills and you can just rely on the AI tools to do that kind of thing. And I think we're really close right now. Like I know Ben has done this, and I think we did something together where we had it analyzing data, and basically you don't need to know Excel anymore. You can say to ChatGPT, here's the data, do this with it. And then you don't need to know the formulas. You don't need to know how to format the data in Excel. It will do that for you. And so I think we're really close to what you're describing, in that can be built straight into the email automation sites and whatnot. So I think that would be really cool if that could be just straight in there, and it makes it a lot easier for people like me who are just getting into this industry to learn these skills. And it's not even really skills anymore. It's the new skill is just being resourceful and knowing where to go to find the answers to these things. Not necessarily like I don't know how to do all this stuff, but I know where to go to get the answers. And a lot of these AI tools are an easy way to get the answers without having to spend hours trying to find them. So that's my.
I really like that point. And it's like when GPT or an iteration of GPT started being able to write code, it opened the door for a lot of people who don't have computer software backgrounds or computer science backgrounds to write code. But people who have those backgrounds are still going to be able to get the most out of that tool because they have the context to write the prompts that get the most out of it. So that totally aligns with what you were just saying. Nithya, I know you have questions prepared as well, so I wanted to give you a chance to ask our marketing expert here.
Thank you. So I know we've talked about how expansive AI is, and there doesn't seem to be like a limit to how we can use it, but I am curious if you see any limitations in using AI and email automation, and whether that's with like privacy and security or just like giving emails a personal touch. Like where do you see like limitations in using AI in your work?
Well, both of those areas for sure. Security is a huge one, and it's actually something that I was ignorant of when I first started using ChatGPT and Jasper. We had a meeting today where we talked about not putting like proprietary content or information from clients into ChatGPT. That's like 101 stuff that we now know that people might have when they first dip their toe into using AI in their life, whether it's schoolwork or professional or just personal. They might not have considered that as being something to worry about, but it clearly it is. And with that, it's like we talk about segmentation, but to segment audiences, we need to have some requisite information on those audiences, and how much are we surrendering over to the AI, so to speak. I don't know that there's a line in the sand quite yet, or I don't know that anything's been agreed upon, but it's something, yes, to keep in mind. Security is a huge thing. I would say I'm more familiar, like my bread and butter would be in the writing side of things. And it's funny, because we're seeing, I'm a big X user, Twitter, or at least a browser. And it's really funny watching a bunch of accounts crop up now that are becoming experts in field X, Y, and Z. And they're clearly using ChatGPT. Now, there's an ESL language element to this as well, right? Like English is a second language. There's people that are trying to make big accounts, and they're using artificial intelligence, using ChatGPT and Bard and all that to create responses, to interact with big accounts, to grow their account. Very interesting strategy, like super cool, right? But it's as clear as day that they're using ChatGPT to write these things. And I try and, I'm not like a critic. I'm not a critic of the technology in the sense that like I'm scared of it, or I think that it's, here's the end of writing. Sorry, writers. I don't believe any of that at all. This is just like a next progression, and it's a tool that we can keep in our toolbox and use when appropriate, and in an appropriate way as well. So, if you are using ChatGPT within those limitations, and you understand that it's going to give you a framework, and that framework is something that you can work within, and edit and make into the VOC, voice of customer, or voice of client, great, do that. But this is by no means a replacement to copywriters. It's by no means a replacement to good editors. It's just not there, and I'm very skeptical of making any predictions as to when it's going to be there. I think it's just a fool's game. So the only point to take away is that we're just not there yet. So don't expect it to produce those kind of results for you.
Yeah, we always talk about it as being a tool used for efficiency, which is true, but it's not a tool where you can skate by being lazy. Like, it will never replace, or maybe I shouldn't say never, but like you just said, it's hard to foresee it replacing like true human interaction on the things that we do. But what it does is it enhances it, and it allows us to, get that idea, get the framework, and then be able to add the human touch and free up your mind to do more of the thinking and maybe less of the typing, which is kind of the value prop to our clients now, is that your budget is going to things that are more valuable and less to just the time it takes to type something out. Thank you for being on the show today, Andrew. I think this was a really cool conversation for us. I know that we use the tools in similar ways in terms of content generation, but you have a different view on the marketing activities that you do, because we're mostly in, social and podcasts and creating, ad copy, but you're actually in, you're in active campaign all the time, and you're doing a lot of the A/B testing and trying to figure out what things perform well. And so we really appreciate your perspective on these things. Do you have any final thoughts that have been rocking around in your brain that you wanted to share, or any questions for us, or any just kind of final words?
Play around with it and have fun. If you have a MailChimp account, which is, I only use MailChimp because it's like the one that everyone knows with respect to email marketing, right? Everyone knows somebody with a MailChimp account because everyone seems to have a list nowadays, which I think is a great thing. But right when you're creating your subject line, MailChimp's going to prompt you. It's going to ask you, do you want to take a stab at this and write it with AI? And it's going to give you a bunch of different ways that you can write it. Do you want to be exciting? Do you want to like induce FOMO? All these different ways of tackling a subject line that you're like, and here's the thing. Again, I consider myself like a writer first and foremost, or somebody who comes up with ideas and puts them down on paper. Do I ever use verbatim what MailChimp spits out? No. But it allows me to think of that subject line or of that body content from a slightly different angle that I might not have considered previously. And that in my world, that's good enough. But I would never learn that if I was allergic to the technology, or if I was I stayed away from it for any particular reason. I think the only way to better understand this is to continue to use it. Like if you want to grow an audience on social media, it's not going to happen with one viral post. You're going to have to do 500 posts, and you might have to delete some of those. And there's iterations that happen, right? With any new technology or any new skill set. So experiment, like honestly, if you're sending emails, use the technology and then A/B test it. If your audience is big enough, A/B test your subject line versus the AI subject line, and see where that gets you. So you don't know till you try, so start trying.
I like that. And I think it really aligns with what you said before, where you can really tell that certain accounts were using AI. And I don't think that's where people want to go with that. I think using it, learning from it, and then adding your own personal touch and using what you've learned and incorporating that into what you know is probably the best way to go about it. So I really like that.
Sometimes it's important to get called out though, right, guys? Because you got to know what the limitations are to to using this technology. That was not a dig at all, I promise.
It's a learning aspect. One of the things we talk about here is we call it fail, learn, innovate. It's our fly exercise. So as long as you're able to learn from it and innovate on that, failure is never really a bad thing for us. So it's a great point.
Fail forward, man. You know,
yeah.
But you can't unless you use it, unless you try. So
awesome.
My parting words of wisdom.
I think I couldn't have tied it up in a bow better myself. Thank you again for being on the show. I look forward to keeping this conversation going, whether it's we have you as a guest again or just in the office. I think you're a really good asset for our team to bounce ideas off of, and we really enjoyed having you today.
Appreciate it, you all. Talk soon.
Well, thanks so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week with our faithful leader, Doug Foley, back on the show. So look forward to that. Thank you.
Take care.